Hi everyone, this is Harshvardhan, physiotherapist. When I was doing my undergraduation, it was very difficult for me to learn biomechanics, and it turned out to be from the toughest subject to my most favorite subject. And learning biomechanics properly could change the way you practice very much. It could give you insights into nuances and the basic biomechanic terminologies which are used are often confused or used interchangeably with the wrong words. So if you want to get your basics strong, and if you're a clinician and you're watching this video is for you. And or if you are a student who have just joined your undergraduation and you came across a subject called as biomechanics, and you wanted to come online and check if there were any relevant material available, kudos, this video is for you too. So the introduction to biomechanics series is broken into two videos. This is the first part which I am doing, which would contain one part of biomechanics, that is the kinematics, and the second part would contain something called as kinetics. So for study purposes we have divided the video into two, that is your kinematics and kinetics. So though we will be talking about everything generally, because we need to get ourselves very familiar with the terms, uh, we would be covering kinematics in detail in this video. Right, let us go ahead. So we would be starting with a teeny bit of introduction. So we'd be covering kinesiology and biomechanics, the basic definitions and stuff. Most of the time we use these terms very interchangeably, but it is not very relevant because it kind of has slightly different meanings, and we'll get to know that. And as I said, we would be dividing the biomechanics into two parts, kinematics and kinetics, and then we would be talking about movement, types of movement, that is types of motion. Then we would be dividing the kinematics into two parts for study purposes, that is osteokinematics, that is how the bone moves in relation to space, and arthrokinematics, how does movement occur inside a joint. So let us begin. Introduction. So what is kinesiology? Kinesis is to move, logy is to study. So you study how to move, that is your kinesiology. Biomechanics is a part of kinesiology, that is biomechanics is a discipline that uses principles of physics to quantitatively study how forces interact within a living body. So it is a quantitative way of studying things, and as physiotherapists we are asked to be as objective as we can. If you want to be objective, you talk values, you talk numbers, you talk you classify things in a very nuanced manner, and biomechanics helps you to do that. So what is kinesiology? You take your anatomy, that is your structure, physiology, the way the structures function, and you quantitatively see how forces act for these structures to function, that is your biomechanics. All these put together gives your kinesiology. So kinesiology is sort of an umbrella term. It has a teeny bit of anatomy, physiology and biomechanics. Cool. So introduction to biomechanics. Biomechanics, as I said, for study purposes is divided into two parts, that is your kinematics and your kinetics. So there is a very huge differences between these two, because these two describe how the body behaves during movement. But kinematic describes the motion of the body, but it does not have any regard to the forces or torques that might have been responsible for the movement. So it does not care what causes the movement, but it describes the movement. That is your kinematics. And what is your kinetics? So it describes the forces of forces which enact on the body for the movement to occur. So these are two different things. So today we would be talking about kinematics, that is we will describe the motion of a body, but we will not have any regard for the forces or torques that might have been responsible for this movement, and the forces which enact on the body, which is a part of kinetics, would be explained in the coming video. So we would be dealing with mostly kinematics today. So let us see. We talk about a lot of movement and kinematics. What is kinematics? It describes how a body behaves in motion. So you need to know what are the types of motion. You often, what happens, these terms, these types of motion are used interchangeably, very irrelevantly many a times. So we need to be very clear what is what, and therefore we should understand what are the types of motion without any confusion, and we should be able to differentiate it apart clearly. So types of motion, you have two basics, very basic types of motion. One is your translation and the other one is your rotation. So translation. So what is translation? It is a linear motion of the body in which the rigid body moves parallel. All parts of the rigid body will move parallel and in the same direction as every other part of the body. For example, if I can take my hand, it has a thumb finger, index finger, middle finger and whatnot. See, so now I'm going to translate my hand in space. So you can see all the fingers in my hand are moving in a parallel manner and in the same direction. But translation need not be always straight. In other words, rectilinear. Sometimes it can also be curvilinear, that is like this. There is a beautiful definition for human locomotion which states that human locomotion is nothing but the translation of center of mass of a body in space. So how does a body translate? So it translates in a curvilinear movement. The examples would be in the next slide. What is rotation and why it is so fundamentally different from translation? Let us see. So rotation, it is a motion in which a rigid body moves in a circular path around a pivot point. So for example, you can take my elbow and this is a pivot point. This is a pivot point. So say we have an imaginary line passing through this pivot point and we call it as the axis of rotation. We would be talking about in detail in the upcoming slides. So you have an imaginary line through this immovable bone, and the other bone, that is the distal part of the bone, moves around this axis of rotation or the pivot point. So a motion in which a rigid body moves in a circular path around a pivot point is called rotation. So all points in the body simultaneously rotate either clockwise and anti-clockwise. So we talked about human locomotion right before some time. So human locomotion, as I said, is a translation of center of mass of a human body in space, right? But for this translation to occur, there should be rotation in many other joints, isn't it? Okay, we'll talk about it in detail. So let us see some pictures over here. So the first picture denotes a rotation, and we have also explained you how does a rotation occur. The axis of rotation passes through the pivot point, and the rigid body, which is the distal part, in this case the forearm, moves in and around in a clockwise and in a anti-clockwise around the pivot point. So that is your rotation. And if you see the other slide, let me open my pointer. So if you see, these numbers are denoting the centimeters. So this is about 5 centimeters. So they say there is about 5 centimeter translation of the head when you walk, right? So we have frozen these images at different points in gate. So here you start with 0%, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and so on. So we see how the head is translating in space. So this is the fundamental difference between rotation and translation. So let us go to the next slide. As I said, we would be talking mostly about kinematics today, and we understood what are the types of motion. Now we will see what motion occurs that is what sort of motion occurs in the bone, which is your osteokinematics. And then we would be later talking about arthrokinematics, what happens inside a joint. So we said that how the bone moves in relation to space is your osteokinematics, isn't it? But space is a vaguely bigger term. So now for you to not be confused, we have divided the space into multiple planes. So we would be describing what happens and how the bone moves in relation to space. So how do we do that? So we divide the space, or we put it into perspective, so that we put the space into perspective according to the planes of motion, which we would be explaining in a bit. So then we also had a slight bit of introduction of what is axis of rotation a wee bit earlier when we were talking about a rotation, isn't it? So we would be looking at that too. Then we would see what are degrees of freedom and how it influences the movement of a joint, right? We would be talking about that, and then we would be talking about something very, very interesting called as kinematic chain, and that would give you a very different perspective of how do people prescribe exercises. So this is the basis of the basic principles of exercise prescription are based on the kinematic chains, and it is very, very important for us to understand that. So let us go forward. So osteokinematics. So what is osteokinematics? It describes the motion of the body in relation to the space, as we said earlier, but now we are putting the space into perspective. That is, we will divide the space into three cardinal or principal planes. So how do we divide the space like that, and how do we make that relevant to the body like this? So first we have three planes of motion, which is your frontal plane. So if you are standing in the anatomical position as that man in the picture is standing, your frontal plane would pass through ear to ear, separating your body into front and back parts. So into front and back parts. So all these movements, that is your abduction, adduction, for example, are said to happen in the frontal plane, isn't it? Are said to happen in the frontal plane. Next, you have your sagittal plane. Sagittal plane runs from front to back, dividing your body into right and left parts. So how do we so what all movements happen in sagittal plane? For example, we talked about the shoulder. What happens is your flexion and extension. It happens in your sagittal plane, isn't it? Okay, right. So what movement happens in your horizontal plane? Of course, your rotations, isn't it? Your rotations, internal and external rotations of the arm happen in the horizontal plane. So how did we come up with these planes, and how did we make it relevant to the body? So we'll see that. Your sagittal plane passes through and corresponds through the sagittal suture in your skull. You remember the suture which divides your parietal bones, that is your right and left parietal bones? Yeah, that is the structure we are talking about. So it passes right through the center. Then you have your coronal or frontal plane, and of course it corresponds to the coronal suture of the body. And your horizontal plane divides your body into upper and lower halves, isn't it? So whatever movement we talk about, so flexion, extension, rotation, abduction, adduction, radial deviation, ulnar deviation, supination, pronation, every movement should be put into perspective, and people should understand that it happens in either one of these planes. So we have to be very familiar with these planes, and we'll have to be very sure what all movements will occur in each planes, but more about that later. Now let us go to the next slide. So next, we were also going to talk about the axis of rotation. See, bones rotate around a joint, isn't it? Bones rotate around a joint, and that is how movement occurs. So when these have to rotate, so we talked about an imaginary line, and this imaginary line which passes through the pivot point of the bone, and remember, this pivot point is immovable. The pivot point is always immovable, and this imaginary line passes through a perpendicular. No, it passes through a perpendicular way in the plane. So how does it occur? See, parallel is this. If two structures are running along together, that is called parallel. If this passes through a structure and intersects in between, this is called as perpendicular. So in our elbow, this is the axis of rotation and you have an imaginary line which passes like this. So this is perpendicular. So bone rotates around a joint in a plane that is perpendicular to this axis of rotation. So this axis is typically located through the convex member of the joint. So in this case, the shoulder, the convex member of the joint is obviously your glenohumeral, the humeral head, right? So different movement has different axis. So in this case, see, you have your anterior posterior axis. So what movement happens in your anterior and posterior axis? See, if this is how the anterior posterior axis is, the movement which happens, which corresponds to this axis, is of course your abduction and adduction, isn't it? Abduction and adduction. So your medial lateral axis, what movement corresponds to your medial lateral axis? Of course, it is your flexion and extension, and the other one is your rotation. So bones rotate around a joint in a plane that is perpendicular to the axis of rotation. What is this axis of rotation? It is an imaginary line which passes through the pivot point, and it is typically located to the convex member of the joint. Okay, convex member of the joint. So very important to remember this. I know, so knowing these terms are very important for us in the future to when we go into biomechanics of individual joints. So these are the basic terminologies and very important for us to remember, right? Next, you have your degrees of freedom. So how many degrees of freedom? See, this degrees of freedom is directly proportional to what movements could happen in each plane. For example, the shoulder has movement in all the planes. It has movement in the frontal, sagittal and the horizontal planes. So it has up to 3 degrees of movement. So there are certain joints which does not have movement in other planes, like your wrist. Your wrist has flexion, extension, it has radial deviation and ulnar deviation. Not your supination, pronation, it happens in your radio-ulnar joints, isn't it? So it has only 2 degrees of freedom. But in the case of your shoulder, it has 3 degrees of freedom, isn't it? So every joint has different degrees of freedom, right? It is very important for us to remember that. Next, we are going to talk about kinematic chains. And as I told you, it is very important for us to learn this concept, because this is the basis of which exercises are prescribed. Say that I have ACL client who has come to me. I would really need to understand what sort of exercise should I give. So what is a kinematic chain? A kinematic chain refers to a series of articulated segment-like links, like your pelvis, thigh, leg, foot and lower extremity. It is like a chain, isn't it? It is all connected together. You do something distally, it has an effect proximally. You do something proximally, it has an effect distally, isn't it? So how do we further classify movement in these kinematic chains? So these movement can be described like this. They can be classified as either open kinematic chain or closed kinematic chain. The terms open and closed kinematic chain are typically used to indicate whether the distal end of the extremity is fixed to earth or some immovable object, right? So if I were to stand and if I were to squat down, it is considered as a closed kinematic chain activity, because the distal end, whichever is there, that is my foot, is connected to the ground. But if I were to extend my knee or if I were to flex my elbow, the distal end is not fixed to an immovable surface or it is not fixed to the ground. But say the same flexion extension, if I am holding my arm close to the wall and doing it this way, definitely it is a closed kinematic chain because my hand is in contact with an immovable object. So in both open and closed kinematic chain, the links, which is the kinematic chain, behaves differently. How does it behave differently? Let us go ahead and see. So what are the fundamental differences between open and closed? Let us just revise it again. So open kinematic chain, a situation in which the distal segment of the kinematic chain is not fixed to the earth or an immovable object. So therefore the distal segment is free, isn't it? So then you have your closed kinematic chain. A situation in which the distal segment of the kinematic chain is fixed to the earth or other immovable object. So the proximal segment is free and distal is fixed. So in open, the distal segment is free to move. In closed, you have the proximal segment which is free to move and distal segment which is fixed. So here is a diagrammatic explanation of how it occurs. So you see your knee extension occurring, right? Knee extension and flexion, knee extension and flexion. No, so this is tibia which is moving on the femur. So the tibia here is the free distal segment and the proximal fixed segment is your femur, isn't it? Can you see? This is your open kinematic chain. And if you see femoral on tibial movement, so it happens here, and see the distal is fixed and proximal is free. So this is your closed kinematic chain. So more and more you would be understanding on this tibial on femoral or open kinematic or femoral on tibial, that is your closed kinematic, when we go into the arthrokinematics, because whatever movement happens in the bone will vary a lot depending on what sort of kinematic chain activity is going to occur. So that we have understood what is an open kinematic chain activity and a closed kinematic chain activity. Let us go to the next and final part of this presentation, which is your arthrokinematics. So typical joint morphology will be explained in brief because you will have to have an idea of this before talking about arthrokinematics, because you are going to talk about a joint. You should know how a joint, typical joint structure is. Then you have your fundamental movement between joint surfaces. Then you have your closed packed and loose packed positions, right? More about that later. Don't confuse it with open chain and closed chain activities. These are totally different. Closed pack and loose pack position, I will explain it later. So arthrokinematics. So what is arthrokinematics? It describes the motion that occurs between articular surfaces of joint. As simple as that. So what is osteo? Osteo is how movement occurs with regards to the three cardinal planes, isn't it? Your arthrokinematics is just the description of movement which occurs between these articular surfaces. Usually, typically, one is a convex and one is a concave structure. So one is a concave structure and one is a convex structure, right? So typically the shape of articular surfaces of the joint range from flat to curved. But putting that aside, most joint surfaces are at least slightly curved, with one surface being relatively convex and other being relatively concave. So it does not appear outright that one is concave or convex. For example, if you can see the surface of tibia, right? So your tibia does not seem to be very concave, but it is slightly concave. It is there, right? So you can't see it outrightly, but at least one is relatively convex to the and the other is relatively concave. So this concave and convex relationship improves the congruency, that is the fit of the joint. It increases the surface area for dissipating the contact forces and helps guide the motion between the bones. See, there is a small thing I want to put forth. If you can see the glenohumeral joint, the glenoid part is very small. Then you have the soft tissue structures also which comes, that is your glenoid cavity is found by the glenoid labrum, which gives a very good cup-like congruency to the joint. So it is not only the bone, so sometimes the bone is very relatively concave and the soft tissue makes it more and more concave to make it a very good congruent fit, that is right. So that we have talked a bit about the typical joint morphology. So we'll see what movement happens in between the joint surfaces. See, fundamental movements, there are three fundamental movements which happens in the joint, right? Like we talked about the two fundamental movements which happens in regards to the bone. What were they? What were they? Right. One is your translation and the other one is your rotation. Here you have something called as a roll, right? Then you have something called as a slide. Then you have something called as a spin. So to put it into perspective, if you can just see the movement which happens in my hand. See, one, you have the roll. You see, say that this is the humerus and this is the glenoid cavity. So this is a roll and this is a slide. So for an abduction to happen, two things have to happen. One is a roll, second is a slide. One is a roll, second is a slide. And then you have one more movement. It is called as a spin. Have you ever stood on one leg and tried to rotate yourself? So if you see what sort of movement happens between the femur and tibia, so this happens. That is called as a spin, right? I will give you proper definitions for all these three. So this is your roll, this is your slide, and this is your spin. So what is a roll? Definition: multiple points along one rotating articular surface contacts multiple points of the other rotating articular surface. Say that I have particle A, B, C over here, and say that I have particle A, B, C over here. So A, B, C of each sides come into contact, right? So see, the A, B, C of this side comes into contact of A1, B1 and C1 of the other side. So multiple points of each surface come into contact with each other in a roll. An analogy is you rotate a tire across a stretch of a pavement, right? That is your roll. Second one, see, this is a diagrammatic representation of roll. Okay. Then you have your slide. So what is a slide? See, you have a single point on one articular surface. It contacts multiple points on other articular surface. So once the roll happens, second what has to happen? Slide. So if you take this point in the articular surface, right, this is going to contact A, B and C. So it contacts A, B and C. So this is your slide which happens. So analogy is a non-rotating tire skidding across a stretch of icy pavement, or you try to take your car and just try to do a nice drift. That is your slide. So what is the third one? Third one is the spin. A single point of one articular surface rotates on a single point on another articular surface. So that is called as your spin. So a toy top rotating on spot of the floor. That is the analogy for spin. So now that we have talked about what are the fundamental movements which occur between the joint surfaces, now we can go ahead and talk about two different scenarios in which we can apply all these three movements which I have learned. That is the roll, and your slide, and then your spin. Correct. So now what happens when a convex member moves on a concave member? So the typical example would be your shoulder. So now we have your convex member, that is your humeral head, which is moving on the concave member, that is your glenoid cavity, isn't it? So now when I want to abduct my shoulder up like this, so two things have to happen. One, it has to roll up and then it has to slide down. So roll, slide, roll, slide. What if slide does not happen? Then you get impinged. So this is called shoulder impingement. More about that later. So roll up, slide down, roll up, slide down. So if you can notice, there is a very distinct pattern which is occurring over here. One, it rolls up, then it slides down. That means when a convex member moves on a concave member, the roll and slide happens in two different opposite directions, isn't it? So it is a reverse of what could happen if you can extend your knee or flex your knee in an open kinematic manner. That if you are sitting here and extending your knee, then what happens? The concave member, which is your tibia, will move on the convex member, which is your femur, isn't it? So now what happens? both the translation and rolling would be there, no, in the same direction. So there is anterior translation, that is your anterior slide, and anterior roll. So both happens in the same direction. So let me give you a diagrammatic representation of what happens during convex on concave and concave on convex, isn't it? So yeah. Next, earlier I had told you not to confuse your open kinematic and closed kinematic with your closed and loose pack positions. It has nothing to do with. Okay, so what is a closed pack position? See, when there is a maximum fit and maximum congruency, all your ligaments and joint is very taut and it does not move beyond that. Very minimal mobilization or accessory movement can be done in that position. That is your closed kinematic chain. For your shoulder, example is you flex your shoulder, abduct your shoulder and externally rotate. See, you can't move further, isn't it? Because this is your closed pack position. What happens if you try to move way further? You dislocate your shoulder. So this is how many dislocations occur, right? You have an anterior inferior dislocation like this, right? So this is your closed pack position. So it says that the joint is a perfect fit in this position, and of course it can't move beyond that. So that is your closed pack position. Then what is a loose pack position? All position, technically speaking, all positions other than a joint closed pack position are referred to as loose pack position. But clinically speaking, we always refer to loose pack position as a neutral zone, right? We try to do much of our mobilizations. No, there are certain indications of mobilizations which would be done in the loose pack position, but more about that later. So usually somewhere in between we consider all the ligaments and passive structures to be active and passive structures to be relaxed, and not much forces acting on the joint, so that you can do a good amount of mobilization and the joint is very loosely packed in that position, right? Summing it all up, so what did we do? First we talked about the introduction, that is we talked about kinesiology and biomechanics. What is kinesiology? Kinesis is to move, logy to study, you study how you move, that is your kinesiology. You put anatomy, physiology and biomechanics together, that is your kinesiology. So what is biomechanics? How forces act on a body to perform a movement, that is your biomechanics. So introduction, so for study purpose what we did, we divided biomechanics into two. One is your kinematics and kinetics. So kinetics we didn't talk about much in this session, we would be talking about it in the upcoming session. Kinematics, so kinematic describes a motion occurring in a body, but it does not have any regard to the forces or torques which has to happen for the movement to occur. So keeping that aside, we talked about two basic types of motion which should not be used interchangeably, is your translation and then your rotation. So translation and rotation. Then we talked about osteokinematics, how the bone moves with regards to or with relation to the space. So putting the space into perspective, three cardinal planes. Then we talked about axis of rotation, then degrees of freedom, and we also talked about open and closed kinematic chains. That is, in other words, concave on convex and convex on concave, which can differ interchangeably according to the joint we are talking about. Then we talked about arthrokinematics, where we talked about the three most fundamental movements. What are they? Roll, slide, and then we talked about the spin. And then we talked about what happens when convex on concave movement occurs and concave on convex movement occurs. What happens arthrokinematically. Then we talked about the closed pack and loose packed positions. Hey guys, hope this was a productive session. If you did like the lecture, please do subscribe and click the bell icon so that you will know if we would create more such videos, and wait for part 2. It is gonna come out very shortly. If you did not understand any part of the lecture, please do let me know in the comments below and I would love to get back to you.